is this brief, mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy?
I, Rickon Stark.
I, Corlys Velaryon.
I, Ormond Baratheon.
Promise to be faithful
to King Viserys
and to his named heir,
Princess Rhaenyra.
Rhaenyra Targaryen.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
We play an ugly game. You have the determination to win it.
History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
There you go, folks. They the Targaryens rule with blood and fire, baby. That's how they get down. So, hopefully we're going to start seeing more of that here towards the end of the series. But we're here to do episode 7 of the House of the Dragon Game of Thrones prequel from HBO Studios. Once again, I am partnered up with Loki's mom, Renee, my good friend and frequent guest on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. It's good to see you again, Renee.
Good to see you guys.
Well, I'm not really fucking seeing you. I just see your stupid skeleton.
Well, yeah, but I can see yours.
Avatar or whatever. I'm just making fun. I'm just joking. I like your avatar. I'm just kidding.
Lady Death Lady, and she's also been with us the whole time. So
that's right.
She's my spiritual advisor.
And that's right. And you make sure that you change outfits on her almost like every other show. So
yeah, try to. Yeah, she has an extensive wardrobe. She's quite fashion conscious, and she loves dressing in vintage haute couture.
That's right. When you got that big YouTube monetization money, baby, you can afford that kind of stuff for the skeleton there.
Absolutely.
Lady
Death Lady.
Anyways,
is far better than I do.
Hey. So we got Tony here. Tony, I don't know Tony that well personally. All I know is that he is a friend and a fellow creator or works with my boy Jay over at the HBOmax Sports Network that I'm partnered with the Mind Creativity Network, and that was all I needed to hear. So once I knew about that, I was like, oh shit, Tony, just come on with us, man. We'll jam it out. So Tony, welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and please tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So like Jeff said, I'm with ASAP Sports, so I primarily do a lot of football, both college and professional, some basketball. But I am secretly a giant nerd at heart. I'm a huge Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon fan. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Was in the military for 8 years. I just separated out.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you all for the support. And it's funny, I actually started podcasting right when COVID first kicked off because I was under the impression, I'll have all the time in the world to make podcasts. I'll have all the time, and I didn't realize that being military medical, that was never going to happen. So for the first year I wanted to start podcasting, I only put out 2 episodes. But then once everything calmed down, I started to podcast a little bit more. So I've been podcasting a little bit more consistently for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. And I do have to say, Renee, I think the skeleton is honestly waiting to see if HBO will ever remake season 8 of Game of Thrones. And honestly, by the looks of the state of where she's at, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we can hope anyway.
Yeah, she's waiting on Tom Hiddleston to return to the MCU's big screen.
There we go.
So Tony, has anybody, I didn't tell you this because it never occurs to me to think about this stuff, but has anybody warned you that the Bleeding Edge is R-rated and we're not for kids? So before you came on here?
I think I've seen and I've heard a couple of your guys' stuff. It ain't gonna hurt my feelings none. Say I'm all about it. So
he's a doctor.
Well, there you go. That's right. And you know what? I think that that's one of the cool things about we developed a big enough reputation with our brand, Renee, to where people do know before they come on like what we're about over here at this
That's
point.
good.
Like,
That's
they get
a
it.
good thing. Yeah, that's good.
It is a good thing, especially when they know that, like, when they hear about some of the grimy shit that I say on here. I'm sure they love that. That's a big no, honestly, Tony, we the whole thing with I don't like to embellish it, even though I probably should more. It probably would attract more audience and more viewers if I did actually embellish the whole R-rated, not for kids thing. But like, to be honest with you, I have no desire to. And really, it just was something that became common sense to me right off the bat, because if I'm not going to not drink alcohol during shows, if I feel like drinking, I'm going to drink.
Yeah.
And like, I'm from New York, born and raised, so I started using the word fuck and like stuff like that at age 3. You know what I mean? That became a part of my vocabulary. So at that point, like, me separating words from that, like from my normal flow, it just isn't possible for me to like be myself and, you know,
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
That's a big. It makes it more natural, because I mean, if you think about it, some of these guys, you know, if they're on a lot of these big networks and stuff like that, or on a lot of these shows, they have to be a little bit more, you know, professional, because they're catered. And they also have the lawyers to be able to, you know, combat that and go against it. But you know, there are times it's like, all right, you can see they want to put something in there to make it a little bit more personable, a little bit more realistic, and they can't. So I think that's where it helps you reach and connect with your audience, that, you know, hey, if you drop an F-bomb here, if you do that here, you know, here and there, it's like, okay, this is a more realistic, you know, actual conversation in a podcast that you can relate to, than a bunch of guys that it's like, they're having to use substitute words that just, you know, sound like a bunch of BS, to be honest with you.
Well, plus we're live streaming, and the whole thing with live streaming is it's supposed to be authentic. You know what I'm saying? Like, what, you know, how are you being authentic if you're not being yourself and talking the way that you talk, you know? So I mean, for me, we didn't start that way, but it just became very clear, you know, because it's the same thing with my guests. If my guests want to smoke or something like that when they're on the show, I don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't care if they want to vape or whatever and whatnot. You know, it really, when it boils down to it, that's all it's about. But no, I think that in general, at the end of the day, YouTube wouldn't have monetized us if they didn't know what we were about. Like, they're, you know, so at that point, I know what the lines are that I can't cross on here. And I just hope that my guests know when they come on that, like, they can't, you know, there's certain barriers that they can't, you know, cross too. And so far, everything's been okay with that. So, but alas, I must say that Renee and I have been working our asses off trying to do these reviews of these House of the Dragon episode, these House of the Dragon episode reviews, because this is definitely a different dynamic for us. I'll be honest with you, Tony. I don't know how much episodical, you know, TV review experience you have and whatnot, but we do Disney Plus series and stuff like that on a regular. But this is some really thick, you know, heavy shit, you know, for us so far. I mean, and so at that point, now neither Renee nor I watched Game of Thrones. We did not.
Really? Okay.
No,
So,
I didn't watch
if anything, no, if anything, you probably know more about the lore and everything and whatnot than we do. So if there's anything throughout the course of the review while I'm moderating where you feel like you want to correct me or help me out or whatever, whatnot, feel free. Don't even feel like there's any, you know, have at it. Because we just want to do a good review, you know what I mean? And you know, based off the knowledge we do have. I watched the Game of Thrones. I've read the books. I've read like 3 of the books so far. And I know about this whole conflict. I've watched the breakdown videos on YouTube and whatnot, but it is very intrinsic. And there's going to be another time jump between episode 7 and episode 8. I know there is. I saw the trailer for episode 8. Did you know that, Renee?
No, I didn't know that.
There's going to be another big time jump between episode 7 and episode 8. Another one. Can you believe it? Another one in the first season.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Where it
one.
left us in the episode we're reviewing, it's, you know, and I'll say it right up front, I don't like any of these people anymore. None of them. None of them have any.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, they've even kind of explained it. It's like setting up. They've done it almost like another pilot episode of, you know, okay, now you've got new characters. Now you kind of have to establish the background, but then also retie it back into the story of where they fit into. So yeah, it is weird how they keep doing all these weird time jumps, but some of these characters don't age. I'm like, how come everybody else?
Telling you,
they don't?
We could do a whole show. We could just talk about these time jumps and like HBO deciding to go in this direction. You know what I mean? Like with the first season, you know, like deciding to space thing to do things the way that they did, because they could have chosen different paths. with this whole, Renee, by now, I'm sure you must have done enough research to understand basically the gist of this whole conflict, right? Well, how it plays out overall.
Honestly, no, I haven't done as far as in the House of the Dragon lore or anything like that. I have not read any of the books.
Well, there's only one book.
Didn't watch. And just to let Tony know, and I've said this before on the show, I'm not a big fantasy fan. I don't really like that. I never was a big Tolkien fan. I'm hardcore science fiction, and my attraction to Marvel and whatnot is because they do delve a lot into science fiction themes and whatnot. So that's my attraction for that. But fantasy, where I come from, as far as the show goes, there's not really that much fantasy in it. It's basically just it's certainly not anything specifically historical, but it's based on a lot of historical things that Martin undoubtedly went to, like I think it's already been said, this is a reflection of the Battle of the Roses in medieval England, and then I also see a lot of Anglo-Saxon Chronicle stuff in it. I mean, and then there's just a little bit of lore and stuff with the magic and the dragons that are pulled into it, which for me, I wish there was a lot more of that and a lot less of this political intrigue, which basically we've seen in dozens of movies, historical dramas and whatnot, and Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare-ish type stuff in it. So otherwise, I mean, I'm hanging in there. I really wanted to do something different with Jeff, and Jeff encouraged me to do this, and so far I've enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. But even so, I'm still, if you had asked me, will I go and watch the Game of Thrones now? I still don't know if I would. I mean, it's just, like I said, this last episode just left me just, ugh.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, I mean, I get where you're coming from, Renee, and you have to pardon me, folks, if I've got some weird camera angles going on here. I decided to fool around and add a monitor to my setup all of a sudden right before the show. Oh, and I'm freezing up on everything. I can see it. So I'm playing around with my camera angles and whatnot. You have to work with me here. But honestly, Tony, since we haven't really had a chance to work with you on the series so far, what has your take been on the series going into episode 7? Like, where were you kind of at with it?
So I will say, as somebody who watched Game of Thrones, it's funny how much they've mirrored a lot of this. To not super go in deep with Game of Thrones, like Otto Hightower, for example, they try to mirror him a lot to the old Hand of the King of Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, how he's this very prominent individual. He's trying to do things for the benefit of his family. There's a little bit of differences to me personally, of Tywin got his reputation because of what he had done to other houses, even underneath, like his own bannermen underneath his own houses. And Otto is he's a little bit more sneaky about it, whereas Tywin, it was pretty much known, and he's very upfront with it. And of course, even in Game of Thrones, there's always a battle for this, lineage of who exactly is supposed to inherit the Iron Throne. And it's funny about how, we all pretty much know. Well, actually, I say I don't want to jump. No, I can't jump too far into this yet, so I'll wait until we dive a little bit deeper before I make that other connection. But overall, I mean, I don't think it's bad. I know from some of the books they've highlighted more characters than what it is in the books. Like Daemon is not actually a main character in the books as he is in the House of the Dragon so far. But I do like what they've done with him as far as making him a true kind of not super antagonist, but not super protagonist in the story. He really just kind of does his own thing so far. As far as what I've seen, I like it, but I am kind of skeptical about the whole, age thing. But I was also personally, I liked Millie Alcock better than I do. I can't remember the lady's name that plays Rhaenyra now. I thought Millie was a great actor. I agree. And I think if they would have just made her a little bit older, she could have honestly mirrored Daenerys from Game of Thrones.
Emma D'Arcy,
right?
Plays is the one that plays the Princess Rhaenyra that we're seeing now.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think she's a bad actor. It's really nothing against her. It's just with Game of Thrones, they primarily focused on Daenerys, and they only had Emilia Clarke play her throughout the entirety. Whereas now, House of the Dragon, they've had 2 actors play her. They have a young version and an older version, and it's like, I feel like if you would have kept the continuity, you would have been a little bit better as far as the overall favor towards the character.
Sure. And of course, I'm sure you already have heard the rumors that there's already been talks that they could potentially do a series like based off of the Millie Alcock version of Rhaenyra.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many different directions that HBO Studios could go in with this stuff. It seems pretty apparent that they're going to try to do something like what they're planning on doing with Walking Dead, where they're going to like have just a load of spinoffs and whatnot and different things and all that, and prequel stuff and TV movie type stuff and everything and whatnot, like whatever they can do to, continue to grow out of this. Can you blame them? Game of Thrones was the most popular fucking TV show in the history of like television
for 10 years,
based off of the stats that they put out there. Good luck trying to decipher them. I can't understand how they with streaming, how they figure that shit out, but they say what they say. And what House of the Dragon's done the same thing, if not better, right? So
yeah.
I mean, did you know that, Renee? Like, House of the Dragon is killing it.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, I don't really look at the ratings and whatnot, or like you say, or how they factor all that stuff. Probably viewer wise, I wouldn't think it would be, because if you go back before there was cable and whatnot, I mean, there was a show like Roots, and you had like 30 some million people watching that. I mean, it was huge. So because for one thing, you only had 3 television networks or 4 to look at. But anyway. But otherwise, I think
you mean when you weren't allowed to have anal in porn because it was like too explicit,
right? Yeah. The only porn we had was like Fritz the Cat and stuff. You couldn't really act. I mean, you had to go to the really inky parts of town and go in one of those really nasty looking stores.
Oh man!
Hey, don't talk about the back. Don't talk about the back of Blockbuster like that. The back of Blockbuster was a respected establishment, man.
I'm never going. If I had lived back then, I would never go to one of those theaters where like they would play porn in the theaters and you have to like jack off at the theater or whatever. Hell, I'm not doing that.
No, with the just segueing. The one time me and my boyfriend, we got really daring. We said, well, okay, we're going to go see some porn. But
this could be rough, Tony.
There was a drive-in, very popular porn drive-in. It was in my hometown.
Oh shit! Very popular porn drive-in. This sounds.
That's where you went to go see porn movies on the big screen.
So did people pay for this? So was this like the pre-internet
I need to know about this place, man. This is actually, I'm finding this very interesting. I would need to go to this place myself.
What? This drive-in?
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore. They don't exist anymore. They're gone. They're gone. Bad. Extinct.
The porn drive-through. It sounds fucking awesome.
I mean, I didn't witness this, but another friend of mine said that they went there one time and said there were these guys. They had pulled a pickup truck and backed it up so that the bed was facing the screen, and they were sitting in rocking chairs on the back of the pickup truck.
I'm writing this down, folks. This is important information. Just so you know, I'm writing this down in my book, just so you understand what's important to me.
There were like a couple of houses back
Ford
get up in the trees, and you could watch it.
Here we go, man. You know what? That might go on one of our first T-shirts when we start our first merch on the Bleeding Edge. Porn drive-in will be like the thing that will say that on the T-shirt. Yeah, I love it. That and Dick Pic Logic. That's going to be our first T-shirt, Tony. It's Dick Pic Logic.
DPL, I like it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it says it all. We're also bringing back cigarettes over here. We're bringing back smoking, folks. Just so you know, over at the MCU'S Bleeding Edge, smoking is not as bad as people say it is. It's actually kind of cool, and so at that point, we are, of course, working with the tobacco companies to bring back advertising for cigarette smoking right here. Cybernetic Shark, my co-host, is going to be our Marlboro man in like our advertisement. And we are going to go all in for cigarette smoking over here at the Bleeding Edge. That's also going to be a part of our merch. We're bringing it back.
Right, you have cigarette
You know?
lighters and
Yep, that's right. It's all the misinformation from the doctors and everything and whatnot. Don't worry about all that. It's just a bunch of bullshit.
yeah, like I said, we got a doctor on the show, and he's saying, "Oh
There
yeah,
you
it's
go.
not bad."
Tony says smoking is cool, kids. But
no.
anyways,
No.
He will not endorse this, Jeff.
At
some
least
of
not
these
that part.
characters.
No, I can't be endorsing stuff for underage kids. No.
Hey, some of these characters on the House of the Dragon episode 7 could use some cigarettes, man. During the episode at times, you know what I mean? Like seriously,
Have
they could
little
use a
baby
cigarette.
dragons, carry little baby dragons around to light it with.
Yeah, seriously. But no. So all right. So Renee, before we go into episode 7, just real quick, what were your feelings after episode 6 as far as like, as far as the whole series goes? Like, where are you kind of at with it? Are you enjoying it? Even if you may not like all the characters, are you enjoying it?
Well, I mean, no, I'm enjoying. As far as the series itself, it's well done. I mean, it's well written. It's exciting, intriguing. I mean, I'm not putting it down as a bad product. I'm just saying, for me, it's not really for me. It's and that's okay. I'm okay with stuff like that. It's not everything has to be catered to me, but as far as that goes, I'm just not really. I just can't get into it. You know what you mean? You just can't get into it. It's like no matter how hard you try, you can't make yourself like it. And but even so, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm getting a lot out of it. And like you say, Millie Alcock, the MCU needs to swoop her up and use her somehow, some way. I mean, she would really work well into that whole cast.
Good call.
Good cast.
Yeah, good call on that one.
Can she be the new Aqua Woman? Can
Matt
Amber Heard
Smith
just go
too.
away?
And Matt Smith too. I mean, he belongs. Good gracious, fight Kevin. Go out there and hire that man. But yeah, it's where I'm at as far as how it ended on episode 6. I mean, yeah, there was a big, huge time jump, and I think it did. And I'm not that unhappy with the older Rhaenyra, but like I say, I think there is she just not quite what Alcock has brought to the character, and of course that could be reflective of the character herself as she's grown more and more cynical and more bitter and more hedonistic and willing to drop her own high standards to achieve her goals. So yeah, I think she's turning into that's when I said I really don't like the characters very much at this point. I mean, all of them have kind of lost there's no redeeming attributes to them at this point. Maybe the next episode that'll change, but we'll see.
Well, that's the thing about episodical television series like this. We're still in the first season, and we still have an 8th and a 9th episode coming out after this one. So at this point, you have to take into consideration that we're just getting to know this new older Rhaenyra, and you gotta wait for those 2 episodes to come out first before you can really, I think, give a verdict on her. For at least for the end.
One thing I have a huge problem just in my own, just any type of character that's any type of, I have a huge problem when they're just abject murderers, cold-blooded murderers. I don't see a lot of redemption coming back from that, other than some sort of dare I say it, like how Tony Stark had to go out, because when you think about it, and before he became Iron Man, he was responsible for the deaths of millions because he was selling all these arms to whoever wanted them. So, he had a lot of blood on his soul, a lot of what the Red Ledger, as Black Widow called it. So, yeah, I think to me, when you get that much red on your ledger, it's hard to make up for it, unless there is a huge sacrifice. Now, maybe that's coming. A redeeming sacrifice, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Red Ledger myself, and actually, my Red Ledger is it's all the chicks that I hooked up with that were on their period. You know what I'm saying? The first time that we had sex.
Yours is more pink.
Yeah, that's my Red Ledger. So I don't really know how you rectify that or whatever. Or
have you murdered anybody? Have you murdered anybody in cold blood, Jeffrey? There you go. Then you got nothing to worry about.
No, but No, but Tony, I think you would agree with me, and that is pretty funny, folks. I got to give myself credit for that. The fact that I managed to flip that Red Ledger thing or whatever into that shit was some dope shit. I'm gonna have to make sure that I edit that out, and put that out there real quick. But either way, just a little bleeding edge style nugget here for the show. Tony, I mean, you tell me. See, I honestly don't. I look right past it when these characters kill. And like have people killed and whatnot, because when they're playing the Game of Thrones, you know what I mean? This is just how it is for them in this world that they live in. There's no way around it. Almost like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to them, they are doing ethical like things in a way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't feel like that they're, if that makes sense, and they're not crazy.
It's a kill or be killed type thing, because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it to you. And that's even if you're trying to just be a good person, you're trying to be moral, you're trying to be ethical, or even if you're just trying to be the person that, you know, tries to find a common ground for everybody, it will very easily get you killed. And, you know, that's just how that series goes. You know, we saw it with the Game of Thrones. You know, Ned Stark was, you know, throughout the whole entire series, they talk about how Ned Stark was the most honorable man in the entire Seven Kingdoms, and he got killed for it. Because he wouldn't take the step to, you know, potentially act first and have somebody killed, because, you know, that to him that was wrong. And I know we look at it and it's like, yeah, he truly is the best character, you know, but like we said with Game of Thrones, that, and even House of the Dragon, you have to do it, because if you don't, somebody will do it to you first, and then that's pretty much the end of everything. So it does suck. And I mean, I see what people say. And I mean, you know, we've seen it so far with, you know, the strong kid with the club foot. You know, he has his dad and his brother executed. That happens quite a bit. You know, like I said with Tywin Lannister, you know, his whole entire song for House Lannister, The Reigns of Castamere, is about him taking a bannerman's house, basically forcing them into their underground catacombs, and then burying them alive, and to show his power and to show that, no, this is the house that is going to run everything, and you guys are going to submit before you guys try to do something to, you know, usurp us. So it's one of those, it's a necessary evil, as I'll call it, in order to be in this realm and to be in this whole entire world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally agree with you on that, Tony. But I think for me, the issue is that then we turn around and we admire that behavior. You know what you're saying. This is the same moral issue that went on in the whole Godfather movies series. I mean, exactly the same thing. Be kill or be killed. You know, it's just business. You know, it's just business.
Yeah.
And we don't admire that. We don't admire that gang culture, drug culture. That's what they do there. We don't admire that at all. I mean, yeah, I understand, like you said, that the historical aspect of it. Absolutely, that's how it was. That's how these people had to survive, and that was, like you say, you know, you go back and you read some of these things, and I mean, it was horrendous. The point is, we progressed as a society beyond that. That was the whole point of the Enlightenment, was to get away.
But these are medieval times, Renee. But these are medieval times.
That's what, yeah, these are absolutely. Exactly. Those are medieval times, but I'm living in the 21st century. So I'm going to apply my 21st century morals to medieval times. And that's one of the, you know, why I always said I don't like the medieval. That's my least favorite period of history, is the medieval period in Europe. That's why, because it was such a conundrum. You had this huge moral tradition. Oh, and we have this, and we're the godly people, and we're bringing God to the people, and yet at the same time they're murdering each other right and left, and they're screwing over each other right and left. Well, because we have to survive. Well, you know, let's find another way to survive. And I think if that something was incorporated into this story, where you did have people who were fighting against this, you know, saying, hey, look, we need to start doing something differently. You know, for 15,000 years we've been doing this. Come on, we need to find a better way.
Yeah.
And,
well, and
so anyway, but that's just me. Like I said, that's just my own personal POV being applied to it. I don't expect other people to have my point of view at all. You know.
Yeah.
So,
no, I see what you're saying. I think when you look at the 21st century version of it, not to dive too far, you know, away from it, like in the business aspect, for example, now, we're not in the business of killing each other anymore. I mean, sometimes that may or may not actually be the case, and there's probably never going to ever be any proof of that.
Well, I mean, look at Putin. I mean, how many people fall out of windows over there?
Exactly. But at the same time, if you look at it in the manner of, okay, in the business, I'm not going to, physically kill you and take your life, but in the business, I could ruin you financially. I could ruin your market. I could ruin your product. And it's the same thing. It's just not as bad because you still get to live. Like, you could still go do something else. You can still continue on. But I do see what you're saying. And unfortunately, as bad as it sounds, you have to have something bad to order to learn the good from it. If that makes sense.
But I don't see anybody. But if there's been, and my understanding, this whole span of time is like, for this universe is like 15,000 years. And if they haven't evolved any better than that in 15,000 years as a society, then why should I be interested in these people? They're never going to change.
Right. Yeah, no, I
don't know. Well, look, historically, the speed or the time it takes for a culture, for a society, for a nation, for a country, for the human race to evolve, it changes. It's not, what I'm saying? I mean, that's one thing that, I mean, there are periods.
There's a thing called human progress, and there doesn't appear to be any
human
progress.
There is. If you look at our history in general, the factual history, there is neutrality at times, like where there were time periods where there were, like in the Dark Ages, where things did just like sit for a long time, for thousands of years, and nothing really evolved.
Well, not there was no long. Just only a few hundred.
No, but seriously though, you got, like, remember, this is a TV show, right? Like, let's just enjoy it for one minute. It's an opera. It's a saga. You know what I mean? Like, and it's played out on TV. It's supposed to be entertaining. You know what I mean? And you're supposed to hate some of the fucking characters. It's part of the deal. Not all of them.
Yeah, like I said,
you're supposed to like one of them.
I'm not damning the TV show per se. I'm saying that one thing that it lacks for me is any redeeming value.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to put it that way.
Can you imagine if Damon was on the She-Hulk series?
Any moral redeeming value. I'm not talking artistic redeeming value. I'm talking about for my own personal POV. I don't see any moral redeeming value in this. Yeah. Whereas this all over the place in the MCU.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Damon was in the She-Hulk Disney Plus series? What he would be like?
Oh, it would have
with all those
series. Oh hell yeah, I'd have watched.
Yeah, with all those pussy ass, like weak ass pussy, like male characters and everything. You have David in there smashing women's heads in and shit. That would have been interesting, Right. But either way, all I'm gonna say, quickly, as my moderating, my short moderating comment is just that, again, I find this entertaining and shit. I love these. This is my stuff. Like, I love serious, dramatic, like adult themed content. That's why I've always loved HBO series. I think that they make the best TV series there are. I may not be on the same ideological standpoint or whatever as HBO Studios is at, in terms of some of the stuff that they interject into some of their series, and they don't even hide it either. They don't even play around. They don't give a shit. They don't have to. It doesn't even bother me when they do it, to be honest with you, because I see it and it's whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I still find the shows entertaining, and I've never seen anybody else out there that makes TV shows as good as HBO. If you like
they have some good ones.
Oh yeah, if you like adult themed type content, you can't go wrong with Band of Brothers and The Wire and The Sopranos, and I could go on and on. Deadwood, I think, is one of the best shows ever. I'm still waiting for the damn Deadwood movie. I don't know what the hell happened with that shit. They said 2 years ago they were going to make one, and then it just never happened. But seriously, I mean, you can't go wrong. When I was a kid, I even liked watching Sex and the City. I loved that damn series. I watched the episode every week. I used to watch it. At like 13, 14 years old. I thought that Jessica Parker or whatnot was awesome. Whatever the hell her name is. But I think my first HBO series when I was 13 was Oz. That was the first one that I tackled. Good job, Mom and Dad. Good parental supervision there. Let me watch Oz in my bedroom as a kid,
Well,
male men raping men. Yep. Male rape.
Well,
you
the
know, and
most
everything
daring
whatnot.
thing my parents did, my dad, both my parents, but my dad in particular was a huge movie buff. I mean, we went to the movies at least twice a week when I was a kid, and maybe sometimes more than that. But um, I was still underage. I think I was probably maybe 14 or somewhere in there. He took me to see the Wild Bunch, Sam Peckinpah. Mm-hmm. That was a great introduction to that genre of film.
Well, I'd have to imagine that probably like back in the since Renee is a little older than me. I have to imagine Renee at that point, like people weren't really IDing you if you brought your kid to a movie.
Well, I mean, it was 17.
You know, like,
I mean, it was R-rated, so I mean, I was with a parent, so you know. But even so, it was
there you go.
it was a very, I mean, you know, nudity and God, oh my gosh, the violence and brutality in it. And there you go, no redeeming values at all for the characters, as it were. But even so, just to show you how different mores have changed and how. Oh my God! It's the stuff we see that's all over the place now. I mean, just all over the place. Like you said, back in the day, I had to go sneak into a drive-in with my boyfriend, you know, and hunker down in the car and hope nobody sees us driving in. Now you can just
Hot D.
Yes.
Yeah, and there you go. And that's a great segue. That's a great segue to the fact that we finally got a Damon Rhaenyra consummation.
Yeah.
In episode 7. Thank God. We no longer have to question whether or not it actually happened back in episode 2 or 3. We know for now it's done. It's a done deal. And Damon knocked that shit out real quick over on the beach during episode 7. I think it was probably about midway through, maybe like I don't know the 25 mark. And honestly, I'll tell you, as far as episode 7 goes, you know, I didn't really. The opening of it, you know, where you see, I guess what you call a funeral or whatever that was for Lena.
Yeah.
You know, who of course was had her, you know, head smashed in with a rock with Damon, which they somehow labeled a hunting accident. How that could be a hunting accident, I have no idea back then.
That was his old wife. That was Lady Royce of the Vale. This is Lena.
Oh,
she
you're
got
right.
burned by Vagar.
Oh, yeah, you're right. This is Lena. Yeah, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. This was Lena who was burnt to death and whatnot and everything. You're right. I apologize about that. And Lena's funeral, you know, was awkward. If anything, you know, we had basically the whole cast, almost all of the important characters were all at the event, and it was very poignant. I thought, you know, the music was very poignant. And watching the division and the politics being played already, like at a funeral, seeing Damon's attitude. Now, if I remember correctly, Tony, Damon actually liked this one, didn't he? Lady Lena. I mean, you know, and she was with child when she was burnt to death, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's some pretty grisly shit. Now, Driftmark is the title of the episode, which I think is very poignant. And essentially, you know, when we go through this funeral scene, the only thing I took from it, me personally, and I'll go around, you know, to everybody here in the panel, what you all thought. The only thing about it that I found interesting was Paddy Constantine's King Viserys approaching Damon in a very warm way, you know, and being like, brother, you know, come back home. You know, there's a place for you on my council. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you belong, you know, with us or whatever and whatnot. You can see him really trying to bring the house together, you know, or the family together. And even in his sort of, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I know how physically, like, you know, falling apart he is. I don't know mentally if he's like how with it he is at this point in episode 7. I think he's got his wits about him. To me, it seems, even though he's unable to grasp the fact that like all of Rhaenyra's children are not like actually full-blooded Targaryen children at all. Like, you know, or they're not, you know, they're not freaking Leonases or whatever. You know,
yeah, they're not Valarians. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mentally,
No,
Viserys
go ahead.
is still there. Yeah, mentally, Viserys is still there. It's physically is where Viserys. I've read a few theories that basically what he has is what we would kind of consider like modern day leprosy. By the
Yes.
whole theory that they put behind it that it might be leprosy. But yeah, so I mean, Viserys kind of recognizes that as it's been 10 years since the whole falling out with whether or not he actually soiled Rhaenyra, the fact that he, asked to marry Rhaenyra, and Viserys took that as, Daemon wants to, secure his spot on the throne and whatnot, and have either himself or his kids eventually rule. And so Viserys, it's been 10 years. Daemon lost his wife. Viserys knows that Daemon is probably grieving, and Viserys knows that his time is coming to an end. So it's like, okay, I want my family to be there with me. All of my kids, for the most part, all of my family is here at the Red Keep, with the exception of Rhaenyra and well, actually Rhaenyra is there, but with the exception of Daemon, he's the only one that's not there. And he did kind of take into the fact of Daemon hasn't done anything against him for the last 10 years. He hasn't been a pain in his ass for the last 10 years like he was the first, 6 episodes that we saw Daemon, where it's like he's being the quote rogue prince, as he's called, of he's just causing trouble. He does what he wants to do. So yeah, to me, this is Viserys wanting to try to make amends before his time comes to an end and actually get to love his brother during his final years, basically.
Sure. There's definitely there's a and again with the time jump, you're right. I mean, it's obvious with him being ill, almost essentially, that he must be questioning. He must be reckoning his own mortality.
Yeah,
to some extent. That does make sense. Now, basically, after later on in the episode, we end up seeing Viserys actually in bed, calling Queen Alicent by the name of his late first wife, Aemma. And I think that right there lends towards the fact that maybe he is starting to slip a little bit mentally, even at this point. Again, he's not able to acknowledge or realize something that everybody else realizes, which is the fact that Rhaenyra's kids are not, her husband's.
Yeah.
But Renee, what did you take out of the funeral scene, if anything? Like, was there anything about Daemon's attitude at all? Was there anything with Queen Alicent at all that stood out to you?
Well, Damon, he's sort of a confusion because when we saw him before the time jump, he was in such a horrible. I mean, who would have thought that in episode 7 he would have wound up marrying and actually making out as well as he has? I mean, it seemed like he's had a reasonably happy life up to that point. And so why the guy just murdered his wife? That's what I was talking about. The whole, why should he get to have this enjoyment, this love, when he just, just point blank, cold bloodedly murdered his wife to get out of that marriage, or whatever reason he did it for. And so yeah, he's kind of, but now he seems like he's settled down a little bit. He's gotten some perspective, and he's weighing his options. I think he sees his opportunity. He sees that, like you say, his brother's still going. I mean, he's still making decisions and everything, but he is an old fool at this point. He's just, it just happens. It's just that time in his life that he's going to go down. And so he's just biding his time. And of course, he sees his opportunity with Princess Rhaenyra, and of course, it ensues after that. Gets even worse.
Yeah.
But they had said something about, just a little side note, about when it was originally on HBO a couple weeks ago, that it was so dark people couldn't see it. But then I looked at it a couple days later from that, and I think they really did something to it, because when I looked at the whole episode, I didn't see all that darkness and whatnot. So I think they did correct some of that. So I don't know what the other people were talking about. But
That shit was dark as fuck.
yeah. It may have been. I've seen movies like that they put on TV, and it was one, I can't think of the name. It was The Cow or something like that. That was a popular movie out a couple of years. set in the Pacific Northwest in the 1840s or 50s, and it was so dark you couldn't see anything. I mean, you were basically just a radio play at that point. But yeah, anyway,
Well, maybe it was.
It looked good. I mean, as far as when I saw the episode, it looked good to me. So
No. I mean, partially a part of that with me on my end has to do with the fact that I was watching the episode on my cell phone.
Well, okay.
So
I got you.
You know,
You had to use,
so no wonder.
gas-powered television.
Yeah, so you're gonna end up with a little bit of a dark screen at that point, but no, and so at that point, of course, we see that Daemon basically tells Viserys to go to hell. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't want anything from Viserys. He's perfectly content where he's at. I believe he's at Dragonstone.
Yep.
Let's see. What do we have here? Excuse me, a question. Do you will transmitter the cap of today? I have no idea what that means. Ariel Ganza, I apologize, but I don't know what that means. What I can say, folks, is that unfortunately, I'm having trouble with my StreamYard, and I don't know why, but we're not on Rumble tonight, and we're not on Facebook. So I'm sorry, folks out there on Facebook and Rumble. I tried to get us on there, but I don't know what the hell's going on down here in Southwest Florida after the hurricane, but they're making everything difficult for all of us down here, I guess. But so anyways, as far as the episode goes, episode 7, from there on, of course, we get politicking back and forth. We do get we get scenes with the kids again, like episode 6, where essentially these we get we see scenes with Prince Aemon. We see scenes with essentially with Daemon's children. And basically, we get some of the same, like, I guess, almost supposition and politicking and familial almost politicking that goes on in episode 6. But basically, I guess for me, moving on to episode 7, what I found poignant to keep things kind of short would be the fact that essentially we end up with, later on after the funeral, we end up with basically a scene where we do get the beach scene where we get Rhaenyra, the elderly, not elderly, but the older Rhaenyra with Daemon. And now there's no way for us to know how long it's been since Rhaenyra and Daemon have spoken or been near each other or talked at all. We have no idea. We have no concept of how many years it's been. I can't remember if she mentions it to him in their dialogue or not, that it's been 5, 6, 7 years. Who knows how long it's been? I mean, she's married, he's married, he lives in a completely different place than she does. That may have been the first time they see each other in 10 years. Who the hell knows? But either way, they have a very interesting dialogue. And I'll go to you on that one, Tony. What did you take out of their conversation and everything and whatnot? Because obviously we know where it ends up going. We already talked about it. They do consummate their relationship finally as adults. Mm-hmm. And of course, later on in the episode, they're going to talk later on again. And, there's going to be, some talk about marriage and how's that going to be made, how's that going to be possible and whatnot. But at least for this beach scene, I've always found these dialogues between Daemon and Rhaenyra very interesting and profound. What did you find interesting about it?
Yeah, to me, this was kind of like a I'm gonna say it's almost like kind of a feeling out situation, because we know early on in the series that there was a little bit of that kind of attraction between the two. There was a little bit of that, he was her uncle. They would kind of have some friendly banter, but there was also there was some tension because of the fact that Daemon is removed as the true heir to the king, and Rhaenyra is finally named heir. So it was, okay, how does Daemon respond to this? And really, she's the only one that Daemon, I don't think, would ever go after to hurt in that manner. Anybody else, I think Daemon would go toe to toe with no issue and wouldn't think any differently. But with this, it was, how do they still kind of feel about each other? Daemon is now on his second marriage. He's lost a wife that he truly loves. He has kids with her. And then Rhaenyra is basically now, she's still kind of frustrated because, she's finally named heir to the Iron Throne. She's forced into this marriage with Laenor. Obviously, as we know, Laenor didn't really hold up on his end of the bargain as far as trying to produce children with her. So it's, hey, where do we still stand with each other? Do we still stand as far as like there's a little bit of an attraction there? Could we still potentially make this work? Basically how do they still feel about each other? And you notice that it's like they picked right back up where they left off with basically seemingly no issue, even though we don't know if they've had any type of contact with each other for about the last 10 years or so.
Renee, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, like I say, their connection's real. I mean, they truly do love each other. I think that's true. Of course, Damon's always thinking 3 and 4 moves down the line. He's always calculating. So, and then you have the problem with the who is it? Elam, the I guess that would be his father-in-law now. Because now he has, at least there's some Valyrian blood that is flowing through into his children, into Damien's children. Mm-hmm. So I can see that maneuvering where he would support Daemon and Rhaenyra, because that would then put his granddaughters back in line for the throne at some point. So I can see how that's playing out. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Tony. I don't think he would. I think that's the one thing, that's his one Achilles heel is Princess Rhaenyra, because he does. I mean, it would take a lot for him. He'd have to dig down really deep to do her in. And that's still possible. But
I called that out a long time ago, Renee. I did. I called it out episodes ago.
You did.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. I knew that was the one untouchable character for him. That if anything, that really is his true love. Mm-hmm. It's obvious. Like they're portraying it very well. If anything, I think they're doing a great job of it. Yeah. I mean, you can see how uniquely he treats her and talks to her and whatnot. He almost talks to her like a friend, which is rare for him. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying? Like, he's a pretty straightforward, brash kind of guy, but he's also very, I guess, strategic in how he goes about, his wordplay, unless he's pissed off, which he's pissed off quite a bit.
Or he gets,
be honest here.
He gets in his cups, and then he falls apart.
Yeah, and that's usually and those things usually connect anyway. So you know what I mean. But hey, you know what? There's quite a few characters in the House of the Dragon, and especially in episode 7 that are in their cups throughout the episode. I noticed that when I'm watching them. I always pay attention to who's drinking and who isn't. You know what I mean? I think it's interesting to take into consideration that some of the, like, look at that one episode we have of Viserys that was like so profound, like 3 or 4 or whatever, with the hunt and everything and whatnot. And his son's birthday, he was drunk throughout the whole episode, and you watched him like evolve his drunkenness as it went.
Yeah, just get like more and more.
Yeah, and look at how profound it ended up getting. You know what I mean? Like, it ended up taking him to these like places, like into his psyche, where he was like emptying his soul and shit on Alicent. You know what I mean? And I found that extremely profound. Yeah, I still think that was the best episode of the series. I do. I think that it's unfortunate. I think this will be the only season, obviously, that we're going to get in the series, and Paddy Constantine, and then he'll be gone. And obviously, I mean, his death will probably be the end of the series, I would assume. And either, and I think probably, if I had to guess, I'd say season 2 will probably start right with him dying and Alicent deciding to not tell anyone and hide it, because that's what happens in the conflict. That's what happens in the book. She hides his death and basically, uses her relationship with Sir Christian Cole and and the Kingsguard to assert control essentially over the Iron Throne to some extent, if I'm correct, right, Tony?
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to give out any type of spoilers because I have seen the next episode, so I don't want to give out any spoilers to anybody. I don't want to ruin nothing.
Okay.
But no, you guys are basically on the right track as far as like what Alicent does, because that's where this whole idea of the Greens versus the Blacks come into. Of the Greens
Yes.
being the high towers, they take control over of everything, and then Rhaenyra is basically the Blacks of, you know, I'm truly the heir. Like, this is what Viserys wanted, and you know, this is what we're supposed to be following, and then they pretty much go against something completely different, which again kind of ties into what they did with Game of Thrones. Robert Baratheon, after he takes the Iron Throne, you know, as everybody finds out, of course, he never notices it. Kind of the same with Viserys. All of his children are bastards, and you know, he's like, well, you know, my oldest son is gonna become the king, but you know, he writes an expressive letter that his hand of the king, Ned Stark, is to basically rule until his son Joffrey becomes of age. And that never happens because the queen, Cersei, which would kind of be Alicent at this point, which she does kind of mirror Cersei a little bit in some of her mannerisms and the way that she does things as her character. You know, she basically says, nope, that's not how this is going to work. That's not going to happen. And she puts her own kid on the throne, which is essentially what Alicent is going to try to do. Of no. I don't care what he said. I don't care what was said in front of everybody else. This is what's going to happen, and this is how we're going to do it. So,
see, I have a hard time making those comparisons with the two characters, the Alicent and with I'm sorry, what is Joffrey's mom again?
Cersei.
Cersei, yes. See, Cersei was right from jump. I mean, she was maniacal. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, she was unethical and, like, you know, and power hungry and everything and whatnot, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, she wanted Robert dead on her own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, but that, well, let's not, I don't want to go too heavily into the Game of Thrones. But no, so I'll tell you that, basically there was another, what I thought was wonderful, exchange throughout the episode, where, essentially we see a conversation between, you know, Corlys Velaryon and Rhaenys Targaryen again, sort of, and again, I found their conversations very profound as well. As Renee and I've discussed on many of these reviews, I felt like their dialogues have been really almost like a highlight to me for the episode. I really found their back and forth really interesting, their love and their relationship, and also their arguments at the same time. You know what I mean? And like sort of conflicted interests and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I find that statement that that Corlys made, it was either in episode 7 or episode 6, where he said essentially that, you know, what is life if not for you know, the desire of legacy, you know, or to the pursuit of legacy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I found that very poignant. I really did. I found that to be probably the most powerful declaration or phrase or statement across the span of the series so far, especially the way he said it. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, Renee, I think you would agree, Corlys Velaryon is not an ethical man. He's not. Like, I'm not saying that he's not willing to kill people and whatnot and everything if necessary, but you can tell that he's a good man for what it is for this time period. He is the quintessential decent man, you know, decent lord.
He seems, he seems
you know,
to be the one who wants to do, who at least wants to try everything else before he has to do the most bitter thing. So yeah, I mean that's that. Yeah, I'll agree. I think he's probably one of the nicer, put quotes around nice characters in this whole episode, whole drama. You know, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. And I think his wife, who didn't get to be the king, she was supposed to be the queen and she didn't get it. You know, she got bypassed. Right, yeah. I like I say, I always have trouble with all these names and whatnot. But yeah, I think she's got some ethics to her also. But but they both want to, like you say, as you're saying, this was that time period. That was their zeitgeist, and that's how they had to survive. So they're going to do what they have to do and choke it down. But and to a large King Rhaenyra himself is like that. He tries to do everything he can before he has to go to war and do those types of things. He wants people to get along. He wants the society to progress and be better. The whole thing is building that beautiful. His dream is to build that beautiful city where and whatnot. And of course, it's in the meantime things are just really horrible out on the streets. And I wish they would show that a little bit more. I like I like what goes on at the street level as much as I do in the castles. You don't get to see a lot of that.
No, and I'll tell you, of course, I'm sure you really enjoyed this, Renee. We saw Aemond basically, I guess, connect, or he rode Vagar.
Right.
And I guess, if I understand correctly how these whole connections with the dragons, once you ride the dragon, you've sunk with it, basically. You've synced with the dragon at that point to where I guess he'll be able to ride it now, and now
gutsy little kid guy. He was just probably the best thing in the whole was him getting on that dragon and just
oh, and I'll just
wow.
No, go ahead, Renee. That's the only setup I needed to give you. You go ahead and jump on it, and then Tony, you follow her right up, and please tell me what you thought about the scene.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was very exciting seeing, here again, finally we got some dragon action. And it's a little kid riding a dragon, so who's not going to love that? And and you're right. I guess that's what it took. And he was the one that got passed over as far as getting his dragon egg, and he was so humiliated in the last episode with the little pig and all that. So now he's got the big balls now.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because they kind of broke down like where Aemon stands as far as the whole family line thing. Because you think about it, Aegon has literally been handed everything because he's the king's first son that has managed to make it, has managed to live, and Aemon is literally the second son. So Aemon has had to work for more of the things that he wants. So Aegon, it was super easy for him to get a dragon. He bonded with one. Aemon couldn't get that. They've made fun of him for it. They've poked at him for it. So he's had to work extremely hard to be able to get to where he's at, be able to be basically respected within, the family and even outside of, inside of the court and the castle. So for him to be able to go and get the biggest, the oldest, and basically one of the original founding dragons that's left in Vagar and be able to bond with it and basically, for not really tame it, because you can never truly tame a dragon, no matter how much Disney says you can. It was a cool thing to be able to see him do that. And honestly, the only reason other people hadn't is because Vagar is so vicious and so unpredictable. And this kid is just like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna almost die while I'm doing it, but I'm gonna do it.
Did you see the size that they showed him? The scale of the size of him when they first zoomed in the camera on him and how large he is?
Yeah,
I mean, he's massive.
Yeah. And you got to think this is where kind of Game of Thrones fans always try to say that Drogon, Daenerys' biggest and largest dragon, is potentially as large as Balerion the Dread, the original dragon that Aegon the Conqueror came in with. No, it's like Vagar is slightly smaller than Balerion, if that gives you any indication of how big Balerion is. And like you said, when they zoomed in as just to how big Vagar is, this is a massive dragon. And that's because, they've never been contained in these dragon pit in this cages. So they're free to grow however large they want to.
And they will continue to grow as long as they're given free reign and they can eat when they want to eat and everything and whatnot. They just grow.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's almost crazy because they literally are like the war machines. They're like the nuclear weapons of this time period. In a way, like they're literally that much of a game changer, and we're going to see that. I think, and we've seen it a little bit But wait until we get into season 2 and season 3 and we actually get battles
Mm-hmm.
where you actually see the dragons like against armies
Mm-hmm.
and just annihilating armies and shit like that and whatnot, and thousands of soldiers being like destroyed.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah, and I will say that is kind of the one cool thing with Game of Thrones is that they did capitalize on that. You know, Daenerys came in with one dragon and took out, I think, like a third of Cersei's army with no issue, and just completely burned all of it to the ground. And all of them are like, there's no way we can win this because they don't have dragons. So that's what's going to make this even better, is that it's dragon versus dragon. So there's going to have to be a lot more strategy. There's going to have to be a lot more tactics involved with this, because it, like you said, it's nuclear warhead versus nuclear warhead. You know, who can strike first, who can get the more damaging blows in the most critical places.
sure. And then, you know, Renee, we then, of course, have the conflict where we end up seeing Aemon get his eye, you know, essentially poked out. Now, if I remember correctly, who help me out with Tony? Who was it that actually stabbed his eye? It was
I think it was Luke Lucerys.
Yes, Luceri. It was Lucerys. It was
Valerian.
Lucerys Valerian.
Yeah.
Yes, and now that whole sequence after that, where we end up with the politicking and the back and forth with Alicent and Rhaenyra, and we have it brought to attention to Viserys that there was questioning of the bastardization,
Mm-hmm.
of her sons,
Yeah.
and everything and whatnot. That's brought his attention, and it's put out to him that everyone but him seems to know that Rhaenyra's children are not, of
Legitimate.
what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yes, and at that point, we then, of course, get the very poignant moment of having Alicent be like, "Well, you know what? Eye for an eye," and even calling on Sir Christian Cole to go ahead and take the eye. From the Lucian, Valerian, boy, and Viserys, setting her in her own place and being like, you know what, like, I'm the king, back off. And her attacking Rhaenyra and drawing blood from Rhaenyra, not really wounding her or anything, or hurting her, but drawing blood against her. And Renee, we then, of course, later on have Otto Hightower say to Alicent that Aemon was correct when he said that losing an eye was nothing compared to like the power or the fact that he beat that dragon. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah. He
And I'm
brought
loving
in a
Otto
big
Hightower. Oh yeah, I'm loving Otto Hightower more and more as the series is going on. I'm loving his role. He's the hand again now, believe it or not. The son of a bitch. He's a lucky motherfucker. He should be dead, but he's the hand again now, which just shows that Viserys is not exactly, maybe he isn't all that well mentally. I'm not sure, but Renee, what did you think of that whole powerful scene? After, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What was you going to say? I'm sorry.
After Aemon loses the eye, and then we get that whole procession afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, poor little old Aemon. I mean, he just, but even so, I mean, you can say he's got his eye poked out. He's going to grow up and he's got this badass dragon, the biggest one in the whole kingdom, and he's going to. You can see he's the next time jump. I hope we're going to see one badass dude. Probably,
You will.
Yeah. But yeah, you sort of see in that whole scene, you see Hightower watching it, and then you see also Daemon in the background leaning up against, he's watching what's going on. So they're making their plans, they're making their schemes and whatnot. And there again, we sort of see the king trying to be as magnanimous as he can, and not and try to bring peace back into whatever's going on. So, yeah, it's a rough choice, but we sort of see where things are starting to shape up. And yeah, very, very powerful scene. Very powerful scene. Yeah, and like you say, the king sort of wakes up a little bit there. He gets some of his faculties back, and he, but I don't expect it to last long.
No, and I think this is right where, like as Tony mentioned before, this is where you really see the lines being drawn with the black and the greens for type of deal going on, where you've got the greens being the Alicent side of things, and then the blacks being Rhaenyra's side of things. You know what I mean? And you're starting to see the divisions and the lines starting to be made clear as to who's on what side, right? You saw it at the beginning of the episode during the funeral, then you see it again very clearly when there's the tension of this moment, right? Where you have all these different wild cards going on where you don't even know what's going to happen when Alicent calls on Christian Cole to like take the eye, from the Valerian child. You don't know whether he's going to do it or not at that point, because how much respect does he have for Viserys at this point? You know what I mean? Realistically, compared to his hatred for Rhaenyra, and his whatever his relationship is with Alicent, however close that is. Who knows if that's been consummated? We don't even know. I wouldn't be surprised if it has. Or maybe, who knows? You don't know. Maybe we'll see that in episode 8. I have no idea. But so basically, what I found beyond that, and Tony, you tell me what you think, was really what I thought was actually a very tender almost scene with Rhaenyra and Laenor, where Laenor talks about how much he loves his children, even though they're not his, and feels like he's failed her as a husband. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Notice the trend with these Valerians that they seem to be like good men. You know what I mean? I mean, honestly, his only fault, his only failure as a man or whatever, in this universe, in this story, or this saga, is that he's a homosexual.
Yeah.
Like that's his only problem, basically, and that's pretty shitty. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, he's not a bad dude. You got to give props to a guy no matter what. At the end of the day, I don't care if it's the Middle Ages or now, that loves his kids that aren't even his blood kids.
Yeah. And it is really tender, the fact that he that he does admit his own shortcomings, the fact that Rhaenyra did try and that he was like, I couldn't do it. So, but again, like you said, the fact that he's still willing to take on these kids, he knows the kids aren't his, but he still defends them. He still lets them take his name. He still considers himself a father to them, even though they obviously know that he's not. And he still rolls with that. So it was a really tender moment. And of course, I don't know how far we want to, jump on continuing with it. What Rhaenyra does to still show that she really does love him. And she even said it, she really does love Laenor for who he is. And the fact that he is a good and honorable man, that he was not this guy that married her because he wanted to try to gain his own, potential family wealth or his own personal gain as far as inheriting the throne. He was just as much stuck in that marriage as she was. But he was still kind to her about it. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't like, oh, I hate you for having to be a part of this. Once they had those established boundaries and those lines drawn, he was all for it. But it does kind of suck that he wasn't able to basically fulfill his end of their deal, and at least having one legitimate child, because as bad as it sounds, a lot of this can be kind of pointed to his fault, because now her children are coming into question, that she doesn't have a true legitimate Velaryon heir, that they're the strong kids.
Okay, Renee, what are your thoughts on the conversation that Rhaenyra and Lenore end up having?
Yeah, I mean, they're like you point out, he's not a bad person. I mean, as far as I talk about having no redeeming qualities or whatever, he does, and unfortunately, it seems like the people with the redeeming qualities don't last long. Let's see. Yeah, I think that he and she really genuinely liked each other. I mean, they had a good friendship and a good, as it was, a good marriage. And he took his responsibility as far as raising the kids and being daddy to them and taking them out and having fun, whatever dads do, and training them to be soldiers and whatnot. He did all his duties, and he's blameless to a degree. for the sole fact that he's not their father. I mean, for whatever reason, you think he could have at least tried to have some children with her. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities for him to have done that. Maybe he can't. Maybe he shoots blanks or whatever. Who knows?
Maybe he watched episode 7 of the Shield Disney Plus series, and he also experienced
absolutely.
dysfunction.
I would agree. Yeah, he had Marvel dysfunction, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's a pity. It's a pity that what happens to him. I mean, it's just, and then here again, this when I say at the end of this episode, I really didn't like anybody. Well, the ones I like are getting killed off.
Well, hey,
except for the kids, I don't hate any of the kids. They're all. I don't hate kids until they get 18.
Oh, they're gonna die too. Don't worry.
I think Aegon's probably. I don't like Aegon too much, but the rest of the kids, I like all the kids.
Yeah, Aegon is definitely a lot weirder than what I can't believe kind of the way that they've gone with him, like the whole random him like jerking off in the window, like just completely. But I was like, that is so just weird. And the fact that his like Allison does not bat an eye. She's just like, what do you think you're doing? I'm like, what do you mean? What do you think you're doing? What? You're not going to talk about this?
Yeah. Well, hey, let's remember now at the end of the episode, of course, Rhaenyra pulls some slick shit, and essentially, we have Daemon go out and set up a hit job, where it looks like Daemon pays Lenore's lover, Coral or whatever, to stage a duel with Lenore, and surprise, it's not Lenore's body that Corlys and Rhaenys find burning in their fireplace, but some other random person's. And actually, Lenore is on a boat with Carl, traveling somewhere down the narrow sea to go, live their own happy gay life together. So hey, some of the good characters survived. Renee, there was a positive ending.
Maybe he'll come back. Yeah, maybe he'll come back a little bit later. I thought he was actually killed though. That's what but the point was they attempted to kill him. Even if he didn't, they wanted to get him out of the way. Yeah, so
they did, but it was some magic shit. You know what I'm saying? So
okay,
okay,
I didn't. I missed that part. I missed that part. Then.
Yeah, they pulled some slick shit, right, Tony?
Yeah, so you know how kind of before this happens, Daemon randomly snaps that guy's neck because he looks real similar, build wise, he's very similar to Laenor, and that's who they. And you notice that the kid that is watching Laenor and Carl fight runs off to go tell the guards. Well, that's the perfect time for them to bring in this other body. Throw them in there, cut his hair, and then he can escape.
I gotcha. I must have been watching some porn.
There you go.
Driving, right?
Oh, my iPad.
That drive-in porn, baby. That drive-in porn, baby.
There's a Tom Hiddleston lookalike.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So, Tony, I got to ask you, man. We are actually going to be doing the Andor Star Wars series.
Okay.
Next, let's see. This Wednesday coming up, we're actually doing Werewolf by Night. We're doing the review of the Werewolf by Night. Mm-hmm. Disney Plus TV movie or whatever. Renee will be on that. But we're going to be doing Andor episode 1 the following Wednesday. So not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. We're going to start right from episode 1. And we're going to review it. Now, you're a Star Wars fan, correct?
Yep, big Star Wars fan.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. We'd love to have you on a couple of those review shows for Andor.
Yeah, I'd be down.
I don't know how Renee feels about that. I'm not sure if she's all down for Andor or not. We'll have to see. How are you feeling about that, Renee?
I'm still nursing my wounds over Boba Fett. Let's see. Yeah, I could probably do it, but I can't do it next Wednesday because I won't be available. But I'd probably jump in. I'll jump in on it.
Okay. I guarantee you, I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be better than Boba Fett. Although, you know,
And
again,
She-Hulk. And She-Hulk.
and She-Hulk, yes. Let's not even talk about She-Hulk, please. I'd rather not. I just want to forget all about it. Like it never even happened.
I had to
just
do a
want it to be over.
second show. I had to do a second. Well, I didn't have to. I did a second show with Grandmaster over at Freeform.net at the Podcast of Champions. So I had to redo everything I did with you guys.
How did that go? I mean, how did that go? What did the champions think over there of the finale of the shit show She-Hulk fucking series?
Well, we lost one of our regulars couldn't be with us, but it's just Grandmaster, myself, and Taylor. And I'll leave it to your imagination what Taylor thought.
That sounds like an exciting,
worse than what I thought. But yeah,
sounds like an exciting, entertaining show. There's a lot of personality in that room. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
That's almost exciting as the porn drive-in.
Taylor down. He has a lot of great comments. Taylor is really deep. I mean, we sell him short. We think he's just a wooden Indian, but he's not. He's very warm, and he just has some very.
I don't sell him short. Hey, I love Taylor to death. No, Taylor is awesome on movie reviews and shit and whatnot. Everything. He's great.
He's great.
Yeah, no, he's just also not exactly the most entertaining motherfucker out there. Like if you're looking for comedic relief from him or whatever or anything like that, then good luck with that shit. It ain't happening.
I think he's funny as hell. I think he's dry. He's very, very dry.
Yes, dry is a hey Taylor, if you're out there, brother, I love you, man.
Yeah,
you're a champion. I'm a champion just like you. Yeah, but y'all are welcome to jump on and I mean, hey, after She-Hulk, I'm ready. I'm ready to dive into Andor, baby. I need something different. I'm glad we're doing House of the Dragon, but no, folks. Basically, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play a quick episode 8 trailer promo, I guess if you want to call it.
As hand, I speak with the king's voice on this,
if it'll start,
and all other matters.
Tomorrow, the High Towers land their first blow.
Those vipers rule in my father's name.
To King's Landing, then. The sea snake has taken a grave wound in battle in the Stepstones.
Who will take the driftwood throne?
The crown cannot stand strong if the House of the Dragon remains divided.
This is a matter of blood, not ambition.
This is a trap.
Nephews? The threat of war looms.
Look at Otto Hightower sitting on that damn freaking throne.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that mean? Oh, man. Does that mean we're going to lose Viserys in episode 8?
I guess. Maybe he's set in his region or something like that.
Maybe he's at the porn drive-in.
Yeah.
During that episode.
Yep.
I don't blame him.
Right? Yeah. I've watched the episode. It gets even better. There's a lot of surprises that you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa.
Oh, Tony, you're shocking me. It gets even better. The House of the Dragon series gets even better.
It does.
Oh man!
I mean, to me at least, it gets better. Yeah, I will say not to give up too many spoilers. I still don't care for Aegon. Aemon to me becomes much cooler and becomes almost like this rival for Daemon. And you're going to see this like really cool, like kind of pretense of Aemon versus Daemon. And you're like, oh crap. The two most like polar opposite characters that also like mirror each other are in for this, clash in the future. And it's going to be really good.
Renee, what did you think of that promo trailer for episode 8?
Yeah, I think it's, like you say, I think we see High Tower is probably going to be the regent until who's the eldest son again? What's his name?
Aegon.
Aegon, yeah. Before Aegon becomes Of course, you'd think maybe the queen would be. So I don't know why he's sitting on that throne. So yeah, that'll be interesting to find out exactly what that means. But yeah. I think you're right. I think the whole Damon Aemon matchup is going to be well worth the wait, and so I'm waiting on that.
Well, they're escalating the Dance of Dragons, because that is what this conflict is actually called historically in this in the lore. This is the Dance of the Dragons.
So this is the book it was based upon, the Dance of the Dragon. This series, or is this new material?
Which book is it, Tony, that actually covers this conflict?
Fire and Blood.
Fire and Blood.
Yep.
Yes.
A little just let, because Tony doesn't know, I'm retiree, but I also work part-time as a concierge, third shift concierge at a senior assistant living facility, which pretty snazzy place. Anyway, they have a library upstairs, and I just happened to be up there just last night, and they actually have the House of the Dragon books. I didn't realize that. They have the whole set up there, so I was kind of surprised by that. Somebody donated, I'm sure, so I don't know how many of the seniors have read that series.
Yeah, you never know. There's some old people. They're like little kids, man. They'll be all for it.
Yeah, they show movies. They'll show like 2 and 3 times a week. They have a nice little theater, and they'll show movies on a huge big screen television. And some of the movies though, we're looking at like Forrest Gump, stuff like that. They like those kinds of movies. And
Forrest Gump's a good ass movie.
Yeah, it is.
It is, yeah, a very good movie.
So Tony, what do you think, man? Can we count on you for next Sunday for episode 8?
Yeah, I can definitely come on for episode 8. Like I said, it's hard for me not to give out spoilers right now because I've already watched it, and I'm like, I can't ruin it for other people. I can't do it.
Renee and I would love to have you, and I'll tell you what. Why don't we get out of here? And Renee, if you want to go ahead and do your plugs for the Podcast of Champions, sakara.freeforums.net. Tony, if you have any plugs for yourself, anything you want to plug, are you actively podcasting on your own, Tony, or are you just doing ASAP? Or
I primarily do ASAP. I do have my own. I do pretty much 100% sports on my own. It's called Inside the Hoosier Mind. I post about every Tuesday or so, but a lot of my stuff is typically on ASAP.
Well, you and I need to connect on a personal level, brother. I need to get your phone number or whatever and give you mine so we can talk and bullshit a little bit, because we've got some content and some stuff coming up on the Bleeding Edge I think you probably want to get in on, besides Andor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And obviously, if Renee's any implication of the fine people we have on the Bleeding Edge as guests, as far as like her with her, Born Drive-In shit and everything and whatnot, clearly, we've got some of the best here. But no, Renee, please tell me about the Podcast of Champions. What is going on in the future of the Podcast of Champions after She-Hulk?
Well, I'm not real sure. I think we're kind of like everybody. There's Panther. I know Grandmaster wants to do Panther, and then Panther 2, and then we're going to do a special show where it's going to be like a recap of the whole Phase 4 and our thoughts and feelings about that. So that's upcoming. And otherwise, they're also doing House of the Dragon, which I only participated with the She-Hulk. So right now, I'm not doing any of the other podcasts, but I will be doing they're doing a special Werewolf by Night at some point, and then we'll do Panther and then the recap. As far as their other episodes coming up, I'm not really sure what they're doing. I know Andor, House of the Dragon, and also Power of the Ring. They're also doing a show on that. And I think Lord Deathman, I'm not sure which one he's on, but he's actually moderating that one.
Okay, Tony, are you watching Rings of Power?
I'm not. I've heard good things, but I haven't started watching that one yet.
Well, we are planning on doing our episode 5 review sometime soon. This whole issue down here with the power and the hurricane and everything down here has really messed up my schedule in terms of some of the the schedule with some of the shows, but we're going to try to finish it. We're at episode 5. That's where we're at. And it gets better. I can tell you that. I get where some of the people were coming from, that it was a little bit boring. The first couple episodes, very suppositional.
Yeah.
But it gets going. It does. The energy starts to grow after a while. And I think it's pretty entertaining. But Tony, please plug away anything you want to plug ASAP wise or your podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I do inside the Hoosier Mind for primarily a sports podcast. My main sports network I'm a part of is All Sports All Plays, ASAP Network. We have pretty much everything. We cover a lot of NFL, a lot of college football. We even have a lot of NBA shows that we'll start to cover as the NBA season kicks off a little bit more. So you can catch me quite a bit on there, and we have a lot of great guys on there as well. A lot of really good content. We have shows for just about everybody and just about all the time. I mean, we have shows going from about 9-10 a.m. in the morning on the East Coast all the way till 10 p.m. on the West Coast. So we've got shows of all varieties, and yeah, you can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Roku, Google, all of that. So we're just about everywhere.
There you go, folks. And of course, my individual content is nothing that can actually be publicly shown, because it would be they don't have a rating yet that actually fits to my personal content. It's beyond R and X and everything and whatnot. They've not come up with a letter yet to be able to rate it. Unfortunately, which I'm not too happy with. I feel like
It's PD, Jeff. It's PD. Porn driving.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's PD.
PD. Rated PD.
Oh, okay. PD. What is that? What does that mean? P?
It means it's beyond X. It's beyond X. PD.
Oh, okay. I got you.
It's so
all right. Well, there you go.
They won't even show it in four walls. It has to be outside. It's so
much. Well, there you go. Now I feel less disrespected and whatnot, and unincluded and whatnot, knowing that there actually is a rating for my content.
Absolutely.
My personal content. There you go. But no, folks. No, folks. We'll be back. Obviously for episode 8. Tony will be back. Renee will be back. Shout out to all of you that make up the majority of our views on YouTube and whatnot, especially. Which are those of you who watch our videos after they're not live, and they're actually, active on the YouTube channel. That's literally probably 90% of our views come from that. So we want to thank all of you out there that catch this afterwards, after this live stream, right now. I hope you enjoy our discussion on the porn drive-in with Renee and Tony and everything. It was very enthralling, very profound.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yep. I'm definitely, I'm thinking about starting my own porn drive-in. Just to be honest with you, based off this show, I'm finding very inspired that maybe I should go in that direction. That could be my future. I could invest into the porn drive-in industry. We'll see. But in the meantime, we'll be here next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Well, you know what? Oh shit! I'm not even gonna say that. I'm not gonna say 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, because then again, it might end up being 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So it'll be somewhere in the 7-ish. We'll put it in that range. In the meantime, we will have our Wednesday evening, 9:35 p.m. Eastern, Werewolf by Night review this Wednesday coming up. I guess that's what? The 19th, I think? Who knows? Doesn't make any difference. 19th. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tony. Mm-hmm. And besides that, please, look, Cybernetic Shark, my co-host, and I would love to get to the 5,000 subscriber mark here pretty soon. So since we already hit 3,000, do us a favor. If you're going to come out and check out the content and whatnot and everything, whether it's Bleeding Edge reactions and it's me with Bandmate and whatnot and everything, or whether it's House of Dragon, whether you're an MCU fan or whatever, if you find us entertaining, if you're watching our videos, just hit the subscribe button. It's not hard. I do it for folks all the time, that aren't even half as entertaining as we are, and I'm still subscribing to their asses. So if you can, come on now, hook us up, help us out here. Either way, I want to thank Tony for joining us, joining me and Renee very much. We appreciate you, Tony.
Yeah, appreciate
you guys having me on. Yeah, awesome. Sure. Yeah, I know you're going to be researching porn drive-ins right after you get out of here, just like I am.
I think that's a thesis right there, a doctoral thesis, porn drive-in.
There you go. I'm telling you, folks. But in the meantime, if I can get my mouse to work here, I'm having all kinds of technological difficulties over here, folks. I'm telling you.
Well, give it
this
more
hurricane shit. this hurricane shit is no joke. But we will see you on the next one. And, for Tony, for Renee, for Cybernetic Shark, my co-host, for Jeff S., a.k.a. True Knowledge, we'll see you later. God bless you, and take care.
I'll take it. Someone will appreciate it. You ever go on, boss? Hey, and I'll give you these flowers for free.
Hey, man, ain't no motherfucking bitch, man. Fuck wrong with you, man.
What you mean, yo?
Idiot, huh? Fuck wrong with you, man.
You just destroyed the
Think I'm
flowers.
stumped or something? Fucking bitch. This shit, man. The fuck
Yo, they're just flowers.
Fuck out of here, man. Ain't no bitch.
They're just flowers, bro. I promise you, they're just flowers.
Man, you soft ass motherfucker. Bet you won't come from behind that glass.
What you mean? I'm just saying they're flowers. There's nothing wrong with them.
What the fuck wrong with you, man?
Why you getting so pressed over flowers?
I paid for motherfucking flowers, man. I paid for my fucking Snickers, man. Fuck wrong with you?
Alright. It's just a flower.
Nah, bro.
You don't want it? Nah. Okay. Change. Here's a bag. You have a blessed day, my brother. Yeah, and you can have these flowers. Because I'm feeling generous today.
Some flowers?
Yeah.
What the fuck I need some flowers for?
What you need some flowers for?
Yeah.
I'm just feeling good today. I'm giving my customers flowers.
You think I'm a bitch or something, bro? I don't need no fucking flowers, bro.
What you mean, bro?
I don't need no fucking flowers, bro. I'm good, bro.
Why you so mad about just some flowers?
Bro, I'm going home to my female, bro. I don't need no fucking flowers, bro.
Oh, so you think